What's live?
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Women's Empower Active, a discussion that we have regularly around here with UR Sportswear with some amazing women to share stories and gain insight and inspiration for all of our journeys to a healthy and active lifestyle. I'm Amy Moritz, and I'll be your moderator again for this call. And just a reminder that you can join the conversation by tweeting at UR Sportswear. Use the hashtag #StrongWomen, and so feel free to join in the conversation with any questions or comments you might have. Our guest today is Emily Schaller, a runner, speaker, and advocate for those living with cystic fibrosis and a person living with cystic fibrosis herself. So welcome to her with your story. You were diagnosed with CF when you were 18 months old, so this has always been what you've known. And when I read about your story, that your parents never treated you as the sick kid. And how did that approach really help you in your development and how you came to understand your condition?
Didn't do that. So, and that's kind of a message I spread when I speak around the country is people with cystic fibrosis are just like everybody else. You'd never know we were sick. We do have a lot of medications we have to take, and we're in the hospital quite a bit, and we go through a lot. But we can do anything and be just like anyone else. So my parents taught me that at a young age. I had two older brothers to keep up with my whole life. So skateboarding, basketball, fighting, wrestling, whatever. I just kept up with them, and my parents never sheltered me. They let me do whatever I wanted to do. It's awesome.
That's great. And with that, did you find when you were growing up that they let you do anything? Were there limitations you had to learn how to deal with?
Not really. So when I was diagnosed, 18 months old in I think that was 83. I'm not good at math. Sounds right. There weren't many treatments or medications aside from my parents had to pound my chest and my back and my sides a few times a day to help loosen the mucus up because we want to cough that stuff out. So the only times where I'd have to stop playing or being a kid was to go inside so my parents could beat me. And then that's kind of it, no other limitations, just extra salt in the summer because we can lose a lot of salt in our sweat. Other than that, there were no...
How did you come to running? How did you come into doing that and find that as your sport?
Oh, well, I hated running until about 7 years ago. I thought running was so stupid that, unless you were playing with a ball to advance, make a goal or help out a team, I thought running was ridiculous. Maybe because I couldn't run. Even when I was a kid, I played basketball, but I wouldn't run as a sport or a form of exercise. So my health started to really decline in my teens and 20s. So I was about 50 to 60% lung function, in the hospital 2 to 3 times a year for IV antibiotics, and I really didn't know what my future was going to be. I was sick, right? I was doing all the medications I was supposed to, listening to the doctors, but I wasn't exercising because I thought I couldn't, right? It was hard. So at one point, about 7 years ago, I was sick of being sick. I'm sick of being in the hospital and not knowing what my future is going to look like. So I started running. That was 7 years ago, and it wasn't easy. I have 50 or 60% lung function, that much harder, but I started because I knew I had to do something, and now it's my sport.
When you started, were there any that you had about starting running, with CF?
Yeah, I guess because I just was unsure. The only time I would run is if it was raining outside, I would run from my car to the store, vice versa, right? Or I was the couch potato sat on. I was so inactive. Other than playing the drums, that was my form of exercise. But yeah, I was scared, but I just did it. I could only run. The first time I set out, I thought I was going to go 2 miles, which was a good goal, but I made it to the corner and keeled over and started coughing and spitting, and the neighbors must have thought that I was insane. Who is this person who looks like they're dying out front? Then I walked to the next fire hydrant, ran to the next stop sign, so it took about 4 months to run 2 miles.
And so experience, what kept you come back to running, which you didn't really enjoy in the first place?
I don't know. I guess I knew it was good. I know just because of having CF that coughing is good, and the more you cough, the better it is because you're coughing that mucus out that can trap infection and bacteria. So I thought oh, this is making me cough a lot, so maybe it's good for me. So I kind of went back to it, and then just kept going and going until I could go 2 blocks instead of 1 block, you know, and then it's a mile eventually, and then 2 miles. And then the biggest thing was my lung function increased just in 3 months of running and walking, up to like 70%, which was the highest I'd seen. So like the proof was in the pudding that running was increasing my lung function, and I felt great.
You know, and then did you run? Did you run by yourself, with other people? How did you find that?
Yeah, by myself with no music. It was like a soul-searching type thing, right? I just, because like not being able to run without coughing, I thought it was so important just for me to like tune into myself and hear my breath and breathe. My mom started running too, so I actually ran with her a few times when we did her first 5K together back in like 2008. So she was my running buddy for a while, and now I run with a great group. But in the beginning, it was myself.
You know, and you know, you mentioned that, you know, tuning into your breathing, and that's for you that has a certain meaning to it. But is it also a little meditative too, like that chance to just kind of, you know, tune into yourself?
Yeah, you tune into yourself, and then you realize, like, you know, when you do a race, like you're running a half marathon and you get to mile 10, and you think to yourself, like, this is sweet. I just ran 10 miles. I only have 3 left. But for me, it was like, well, I just ran 2 blocks, and I'm kind of like fighting CF and beating CF because I wasn't supposed to be alive, one, and also I thought I was a couch potato and couldn't do this. So it was like a lot of psyche stuff going on there.
And did you work with your doctors at all?
Well, with CF especially, like before you start exercising, consult your doctor, just like with anything. But with CF, especially because our lungs are so all over the maps, like I could have 50% lung function and run 2 miles, where somebody with 50% can't walk a block because we're all different, right? So luckily, at the time I started running, I switched to the Adult Cystic Fibrosis Care Center. So I was 25. So yes, I started a little late there. But my new doctor is a runner. He's like a Masters 10K champ. So he's like my buddy, and he's my like running consultant now.
You know, and so, you know, as obviously you want people to talk to, you know, their own doctors, you know, about that. But what are some of the things that did just you get support from your doctor as far as learning how to let your body adapt to 1 block, 2 blocks, a couple miles at a time?
No, I just did it. I just told him, like, this is what I'm doing. I'm running. And he's like, okay, cool. Let's look at your lung function. He's like, okay, so it's working, right? So now it's more just like consulting with injuries. So I go to him with like real life, real people issues instead of CF issues in running. But early on, yeah, it should be like we don't know exactly how to prescribe exercise and running specifically as medicine yet, but we're kind of doing studies to do that. So doctors can say, like, this is the best amount to run at this exertion rate or whatever, and for this amount of time, right? So we're trying to figure out what's best for CF patients. Right now it's just kind of like work with your doctor and work with what's best for you. But hopefully one day we can prescribe exercise as medicine.
That's great. I just want to remind people who are watching that you can tweet in your questions, use the hashtag #StrongWomen, and tweet to UR Sportswear. We'd love to hear your questions or comments. You mentioned you ran a 5K with your mother. When did you start then racing? Was that a natural then progression as to, you know, to running and then wanting to get into a race?
Yeah, I thought so I did, even before like my first 5K with my mom, I jumped in a couple of 5 and 10Ks, which were hilarious because I really couldn't run at that time. It's like that thing when you first start, you like run as fast as you can for a third of a mile, and then you're walking to finish the 10K. Really like stupid, beginner mistake, dressed like an Eskimo type thing. But yeah, after I finished the first race where I actually ran the whole thing, the 5K with my mom was awesome, and then I did a 10K with one of my nurses, which was like huge. And then it was just like my old gym teacher called me and said, "Em, I want to train you for a half marathon." And I'm like, that's pretty stupid. I do not want to run 13 miles. And he had just lost 100 pounds. Like, he was my elementary school gym teacher. So he got me training, and then once I finished that first half marathon, it was like, okay, my lung function's getting better. I'm getting faster. I gotta keep running. So now I'm like running for time for myself, not for the other people. But I don't know. I like a good race, and now that I run with all these fast people where I live now, there are no excuses. They do not give me any. If I cough, they make me run faster. It's really brutal.
You got to catch up, right?
Now. I hope they're watching. Yep.
So how many half marathons have you done now?
I think 13. I don't know. My goal is one in every state. I've got 6 states down and 44 to go. So I'll probably be 90. But I always say, like, I'll be 90 when I finish, but at least I'll be 90, and it'll be awesome.
There you go. You know, and so when you started, you know, as you were training for the half marathon and you did it, what did you fall in love with about that distance and about that race? I
learned to slow down. So the first few years of my life, or for running, I should say, as fast as you can, you're breathing hard, and you finish 3 miles, and it's like, oh, I can't go any longer. But the longer you run, and the more often you do it, you get smarter. So it's a slower pace for a longer distance. I don't know. I just like going out there for a long time. Like a 10-mile run it's like meditative and really pushing. Okay, I got to do it. I got to do a half marathon, right? No marathons for me, by the way, yet. But I don't know. It's like such a sense of accomplishment for yourself, and then it's just like 2 hours of beating CF like every time you run a half marathon. It's cool.
That's great. There was a question. I know you mentioned it earlier. When you started running, so how old were you when you started running?
Gotta make me do math again.
I make you do math again. I know, it's brutal.
20,
or about how many years ago, or what year was it?
25 years old.
Okay.
Midlife crisis.
Midlife crisis. We have another question that came in from Twitter. And it wants to know about how much has your lung function increased, and does it keep increasing as you keep running?
Yep. So with CF, you generally, once people start losing lung function, it's hard to regain lung function. It's just what CF does. It deteriorates the lungs and causes loss of function. So just from running, my function went up from, like, when I was sick, it'd be in the 50s or 40s. When I was healthy, like every day, it'd be like 60, 62. And then with running, it was 74 and then 70. And now, because of a new drug that's given me a future that I never dreamed of, and I will be old one day, it's 88%. So it's essentially like a very mild lung disease now. And I can thank running set me up for when the drug was approved a couple years ago. So I was the healthiest I could be before this drug came out. Now my lung function is, my doctor says I'm like fine wine. I keep getting better with age, and I like that. Like my half marathon's getting faster, and my lung function's going up.
That's, I mean, and that's fantastic. And you mentioned that the running set you up, you know, to be in position. So it's really, it sounds like for you, it's really a combination of the science and research that's coming out, and then being as healthy a position as you can through diet and exercise.
Right, and that's like my biggest thing. So when I started running, I also started eating better. Cystic fibrosis, we're supposed to be on a high-calorie, high-protein diet. And when I was diagnosed, that was like eat as much cake and as much McDonald's as you can, just because we have a hard time gaining weight because we're most of us are pancreatic insufficient. So my diet was terrible. I'd be playing in a band, and after the gig, we'd go get like 30 White Castles, like really stupid. So I realized that if I wanted to do it right, I had to change the way I ate as well. So now I eat a whole food-based vegetarian, which totally helps with my digestion, and I just feel great. I've got tons of energy. And that with exercise and the hours of breathing treatments and vest chest therapies I do each day, things are working good.
That is great. Just a reminder again, people who are watching, to tweet in your questions on Twitter using the hashtag StrongWomen. You are Sportswear. And you know, you mentioned that you run with people now. Tell us a little bit about the organization, RockCF, that you have.
Oh, RockCF. Sure. Yeah. So like my brother was in a band at the time, and I was like getting into the band scene, and we saw like a void in the cystic fibrosis like fundraising and outreach and awareness, where usually there's the black tie gala events, and you've got the walks, which are great, and they bring people together, but we're missing out on this like 18 to 35-year-old crowd. So we thought music brings people together. So we started this rock concert in 2004, and it sold out, raised a bunch for living. I'd gone to college to study theater for a while and decided that I didn't like school anymore. So I stopped going, and then it took about 3 years to establish like all the paperwork and all that stuff to get Rock CF founded, and then 2007 I took the plunge, founded it, and it's been awesome. So my goal is to raise as much awareness about cystic fibrosis as I can through fashion, through music, and the arts and entertainment, just to like engage the world really in cystic fibrosis because it's so rare. 3,000 people have it, so we need more people to know about it. So my goal is to be the face of CF and make people aware and raise money for research and drug development.
A question came in from Twitter that wondered if there are other runners, kind of helps bring some runners together, but have you met a lot of other runners with CF out there, and do you guys talk at all?
Oh yeah, we're in touch quite a bit. We're all very salty, so we have a Facebook group called the Salt Lick. But yes, so I've got a lot of great friends. One is 57 now. He's somebody who I ride bikes with. He lives in New York, and we do a big bike ride each year. But he was a college pole vaulter, and he track coach now. A bunch of people locally run. A few have, well, my one friend just ran the Boston Marathon again. He's a show-off. We have the same doctor, so he just keeps showing me up. Yeah, there's a bunch, and I've seen more in the past, I would say 5 years, now that like the core group of us have been out there in social media and promoting exercise. I've seen a huge spike in the amount of runners and fitness people out there. It's huge, and people are posting it and encouraging each other because it's not easy to start, but once people start and they see the benefits, they want to keep going. So we have to keep encouraging each other and getting through the ups and downs.
Right, and you mentioned getting the word out. So it's how important is it for people to talk so that they know that this is not only something they can do, but something that potentially can help them too. Yeah.
So the doctors, we're still trying to get a majority of them to embrace exercise. We have a program where we give running shoes to CF patients to help them get kick-started in exercise. It's called Kicks Back. And I've had doctors tell me, I can give them shoes, but are they going to run? And I'm like, well, you can write a prescription for this drug, but are they going to do it? So there's some doctors out there who have some pushback because they don't see the research yet that's still out there, but most of the doctors are embracing it. But I think patients respond better to other patients and proof of concept, I guess. So yeah, it's important to embrace, especially younger kids and teenagers, because that's when they want to not exercise, and the treatment burden is so high already. So 3 hours of breathing treatments and treatments a day, and you want me to exercise? So it's a big struggle that I kind of not fight with, but talk to a lot of teenagers about, is the importance of exercise.
Yeah, and that's kind of universal too with teenagers, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
You had mentioned that you've done 6 states, right? You're trying to bag all the states. Where have you run? What states do you have already done?
Michigan, Ohio.
That's your home state, right? Michigan.
Home state, a few in my home state. I'm with Michigan, so nobody asked me again if I'm running another race with them. Illinois, Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, Florida, North Carolina, and Utah.
Okay. And what's on your run schedule for the rest of this year, for the season?
There's a chance I might go to Rio and do the Rio half marathon. A group of cystic fibrosis families down there who are runners. They have their own running group down there. We've been following each other for years, and they're trying to bring me down to talk to the fans, run the race. So I would love to do that.
That would be exciting, yes.
Yeah. Then just some other runs up in northern Michigan, some winery runs. I like runs that end with wine or beer. It's the balance, right?
It's all.
And then a big 500-mile bike ride at the end of the summer.
Wow! Where, and the bike ride is where?
Pencil this in, and this is not a formal announcement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. A question came in from Twitter. What's the most you regularly, what do you run weekly? How much do you run weekly?
I run with my group about 4 or 5 days a week, and we run 4 to 6 miles 4 days, and then like a 6 to 10 miles. So 24 to 35 miles a week.
So you did that math very well there.
You like that?
I like
it's
that.
Like,
yeah.
Yes. Like less is more. I don't know.
We're bringing you along. Another question from Twitter: Is there best weather for you to run in with CF?
I like cold. I like a lot of people I know stay in for these snowy, cold winters, but I enjoy them because the air is so crisp. And the people I run with don't complain too much, but every now and then you get a few that say, my lungs hurt. And I'm like, well, do you want to talk about lungs right now? Humidity is the worst, I'll just say that. So I like 50 degrees and below is great for long distance, but I like shorts and tank tops.
That's for most of us do, right, to run it.
I'll just say anything but humidity is great.
That is true. You know, you mentioned like you're running a group and they'll say like my lungs hurt, and you say, do you obviously have a great sense of humor? Do you use that with people that you run with who don't have any health issues and
my brother, yeah, I'll throw it out there, but not too much. We don't talk. I try not to like talk about it if I don't have to. But all these people know, they do my race. I do a huge half marathon in Michigan every year, organized and race direct, and they all come and they either run or they 200 and some people in this running group in my community, so they're very, very supportive. But I gotta razz them if the opportunity comes up. I'm gonna razz them.
Of course. You know, what are some things that you want, especially you talked about talking with teenagers, but what do you want parents to know too, who might be really nervous about their kids?
I was hoping we'd get to the parents. The parents are the ones that need the most help. You have the helicopter parent decade, right? Where my parents just said, go outside and play and come back when I whistle for you and it's dark. This is not just CF parents, it's all parents, right? But for CF, it's I think there's too much information out there. When I was diagnosed, my parents had an encyclopedia, if anyone knows what that is anymore, and it was a paragraph like this big that basically not a good thing. And now you Google cystic fibrosis and so much stuff comes up. And chances are your child might not deal with half or most of the stuff that's out there, but people think that their kid will. So they're so afraid. Information thing is like, I just tell parents to take a step back. Your kid is a kid. Treat them like any other kid. If it looks like they're struggling doing something, stop them from doing it and figure out something else. But but the question I get everywhere I speak from parents is, how do I get my kid to do this? And it's like, okay, well that's not a good approach to start with. But I would say kids learn everything from their parents, right? Everything. So if you're active, chances are they're going to be active. So maybe start with a walk after dinner, or a bike ride, shoot hoops, or jump rope. I don't know. Just do something where your kid can see you doing it and make them want to do it. So I just tell them to take a step back, and your kid's going to be great. Yeah. When I first started, I was haphazard. I was just like, get these miles done and whatever. I would overtrain. I was injured so much in the first 6 out of 7 years of my training for my running career. So far I've had a good year. It's just overtraining. So I get excited that I can run, and I run and run and run too much. So now I found the balance, which I think maybe yoga has helped with that. Like finding the balance and listening to your body. And it's not just about running, it's about strengthening your core and squats and your butt and making sure everything's strong, your whole body's strong. So this year I've really concentrated on overall strength, and it's helped with my running. And I've put my ego aside.
How hard is that? How hard is that for you? I mean, for a lot of us, that's really hard to do.
Yeah, it's not easy, I'm telling you. Because if I feel good, I want to run. And if I run in the morning and somebody wants me to run at night, I'd usually be like, yeah, let's go running. But I've gotten good at it. Now it just gives me an excuse to watch an extra hour of Netflix.
You have anything in particular on Netflix you're hooked on right now?
Yeah, the Sons of Anarchy thing is killing me. I only watch it while I'm riding my trainer in the basement, so like on a rainy day or in the winter. Sons of Anarchy. Frankie and Grace and Frankie, knocking that one out right now. And Mad Men I just finished, so I'm good. I need some more stuff though. So if anyone wants to hit us with some suggestions.
There we go. Hit us up with some good Netflix
Please.
suggestions. You mentioned the trainer too. We've been talking a lot about running marathons, but how much do you also cycle, and where does that sort of fit in?
It's cross training is key. So I said before, where I would run too much and just focus on running. So cross training is really come into place. So if I run 4 or 5 days a week, I'm on the bike at least 2 times, and maybe it's 2 episodes of Sons of Anarchy. But it's cross training is what I think keeps me healthy, and plus I've got I always schedule long bike trips for the end of the year, so I have to cycle throughout the winter. I was on my trainer, so I like riding my bike. But the trainer is really boring.
A question that came in from Twitter is, what inspires or motivates you as an athlete?
It's tough. I think all the other patients out there, especially like friends that I've grown up with who are no longer here because they had a rough go with CF, and they're in the back of my head whenever I'm doing a race. I always think of my friends who I've lost, who are really sick. And then just knowing that exercise is kind of keeps me going. Like I don't have an option to not do it. Like some are like, I don't want to do it. I'm like, okay, but you really should. Like, it's hard for me to tell people who don't have something wrong with them that they have to do it, because I know as somebody, like, exercise has given me a life, and my doctor's quoted in a magazine saying that running is extending Emily's. I have to do it, and that's what motivates me. Like, I can't go back to where I was, I guess, so I have to keep going forward.
What do you want, like, what would be your motivation message to people, whether they're dealing with cystic fibrosis or some other illness, or they're just dealing with couch potato syndrome? I mean, what's your, what would you say to them as far as finding motivation?
I think it's very tough. I mean, everybody's so different, but people are made to move. We're not made to sit and do nothing. I mean, that's what the human body, it's muscles, right? Our body is composed of bones and muscles, and the fat is just bonus, I guess. I don't know. We have to move, and we have to stay active, and you just look at the news, and it's like, oh, sitting is the new smoking, or heart disease is on the rise, diabetes is on the rise. So if you can do something for 30 minutes a day that could prevent like a $1 million disease, why wouldn't you do it? I mean, that's my thing. I always look at the medical side. I'm like, running has like saved me like 10 weeks out of the year in the hospital, and it saved my insurance a lot of money. And also now I'm dealing with, because I have diabetes, so exercise is not only good for my CF, but as I age, I'm going to need to be proactive against that stuff too. So I think people just need to find a reason to do it, whether it's good or bad, and they just have to do it. Sounds easy, right?
Right. It always sounds easy.
Not easy.
If you had mentioned about, we've talked about your lung capacity. You mentioned saving time in the hospital.
Yeah.
So how has your health been, and how has it positively? I mean, obviously we talked about positively impacted you, but maybe specifically, have you a decrease in time that you had to spend down because of it?
Oh yeah. So throughout high school and I guess early 20s, it would be like every 3 months I was going in the hospital. My friends in school or my friends outside of school would say, like, you're coughing a lot, it's time to go in, it's time. Like, my mom would just look at me and say, it's time. So I was sick. Like, I was in the hospital every 3 to 4 months. And now, with running, I was in once every 18 months. And now I haven't been in the hospital in 3 or 4 years. And that's because of exercise and nutrition, and then a new drug that is treating the underlying cause of cystic fibrosis in my cell, right? So it's not treating my symptoms. It's the first drug of its kind that treats CF at the underlying cellular level. So that has completely changed my life, and now I can run without coughing. The first year and a half, I didn't cough at all, which was crazy. So, yeah, I mean, my health is the best it's ever been, and I hate that. There's no excuse now. Like, if you know how some people, like, they, like, get a surgery that'll make them look perfect, but then they just stop doing everything else to prevent it from happening again. Like, I can't do that. I have to keep on going.
We have another question in from Twitter with the hashtag #StrongWomen.
I get my butt kicked. We just about a mile from here, we have this awesome stretch of land that has like hills that are probably 40 feet. So when we say we're going to do hill work, it's like if you took all the hills we did in one day and put them together, it would be like one hill in like northern Michigan, or it'd be an eighth of a mountain in Utah. So and then I figure out how to run up a hill. It's really not a good approach yet.
You just make it up as you go along?
That's my life.
During the race? Yeah. The people who might want to get involved in your organization, in RoxCF, tell us a little about how they can do that, and do you have any events coming up?
Yeah, so RoxCF, we have 3 like calendar events. So we have the race in March, the half marathon relay, and the 5K run walk. That's every March. Last weekend we had a new event called Bubbles and Bow Ties, where we all wore bow ties and drank sparkling wine. So you're a week late for that. Sorry, guys. And then in August we have a big golf event on Grosse Seal called the RoxCF Classic. It's pretty awesome. So all the info can be found on our website, which is letsroxcf.org. Just Google RoxCF or whatever. You can also join RoxCF Racing, which is something we're trying to really. You sign up year and you run a race wherever you are. You run a few races, whatever. Raise a little money for RoxCF and volunteer. All volunteer and know what it's like to volunteer at races, and also at Cystic Fibrosis, RoxCF or CFF events, whatever. Yeah, and then you can always just have crazy things up my sleeve. With our traveling, I love to meet people when I'm on the road and speaking and riding.
That is great. And as we're starting to wrap up here, what any final thoughts for our viewers out there and for the strong women who are out there watching us right now?
So the recap. It's always tough, the recap. And all right. That's kind of my thing is, especially in getting healthier and then having some bumps in between where I've had to be in the hospital but still come home on IV antibiotics and run in the morning, or ridden a bike with an IV in my arm. It's like nothing should stop you. It might be tough, and you might need to take a rest, which is something that's hard for me to do, but I've learned to do it. But listen to your body and stay strong, and you can do anything you want to do.
Well, great. Well, Emily, thank you so much. And Women Empower Active. So we wish you well, and we'll be following along with you on social media and on your website.
Yes.
Yes. And so for our viewers, thank you very much for your time, and we'll be back again. Join us next time that we're here for another edition of Women Empower Active. I'm Amy Moritz. Thank you all for joining us.
Bye.